Welcome back to Bargirl Baddies. Today's story is about a lesson that cost one man nearly everything he'd saved, and it's a lesson some of you watching might need to hear right now. This is about generosity without boundaries, about mistaking transactions for connection, about learning the hard way that respect can't be purchased, only earned. His name is Marcus Chen, 28 years old, from Toronto, Ontario, software developer. Nice guy. The kind of guy who held doors open, who always picked up the tab, who thought being generous made him a good person, and it did, in the right context. But in the neon-lit bars of Bangkok, that generosity became his downfall. Marcus went to Thailand looking for something he'd lost back home. What he found instead was a mirror reflecting back all his worst habits, all his deepest insecurities, all the ways he'd been trying to buy love his entire adult life. He went from leaving 1,000 baht tips to learning one of the hardest truths about human nature and about himself. This is his story. And if you've ever found yourself spending too much, tipping too much, hoping that generosity will turn into something real, then this story is for you too. Before we dive in, drop a comment and let us know where you're watching from. If you've been to Thailand or experienced something similar, share your story below. And if this resonates with you, hit that like button and subscribe, because these stories are here to help, not to judge. Alright, let's hear from Marcus himself. I'll be honest with you. When Emma left me, I didn't handle it well. 3 years together, living in a cramped one-bedroom in Toronto, talking about marriage and kids and all that future stuff you talk about when you're 25 and think you've got it figured out. Then one day she comes home and tells me she's been seeing someone from work. A guy named Brad. Of course his name was Brad. She moved out the next week, took the couch we'd bought together, the good kitchen knives, half the books, left me with the apartment and the lease, and this crushing silence that felt like it had weight, like I was walking through water every time I came home from work. That was January. Toronto in January is brutal. The kind of cold that gets into your bones, where the wind off Lake Ontario cuts right through your jacket and reminds you that winter here isn't a season, it's a punishment. I'd leave for work when it was dark, come home when it was dark. My job at the software company was fine, decent money. But I was pulling 60-hour weeks because what else was I going to do? Go home to that empty apartment and watch Netflix alone. My buddies at work tried to help. We'd grab beers on Fridays at this pub on King Street, and they tried to set me up with friends of friends. But I wasn't ready. I'd scroll through dating apps on my phone, and everyone looked the same. Same poses, same filters, same bios about loving travel and adventure and tacos. I couldn't bring myself to swipe right on anyone. Instead, I started watching YouTube. At first, it was just background noise, something to fill the silence. But then the algorithm started showing me these videos. Expats in Thailand. Guys living on $1,000 a month in Chiang Mai or Bangkok, eating street food, working remotely from beachside cafes, talking about how much better life was out there. Warm weather. Cheap cost of living. Adventure. Freedom. One video really got to me. This Australian guy, maybe 35, walking through a night market in Bangkok. The colours, the energy, the chaos. He's eating pad thai from a street cart that cost him 30 baht, like $1.50 Canadian. He's laughing, talking to locals, living this life that seemed so far removed from my grey Toronto existence. He says something in the video that stuck with me. Mate, if you're unhappy where you are, nothing's stopping you from starting over somewhere else. Nothing's stopping you. I watched that video 3 times. Then I watched 50 more like it. Travel vlogs, cost of living breakdowns, expat advice channels. The comment sections were full of guys like me. Divorced, lonely, burnt out. All of them talking about Thailand like it was some kind of salvation. My buddy Jake, one of the developers on my team, caught me watching one of these videos during lunch one day. He laughed, said, "Bro, are you planning your escape?" And I guess I was. We joked about it. Going to Thailand to find yourself. Having a midlife crisis at 28. Finding a Thai girlfriend. All the cliches. But underneath the jokes, something was forming. A plan. A way out. I started saving. Cut back on everything. No more eating out. No more beers after work. No more impulse purchases on Amazon. Every paycheck, I'd move money into a separate account, my Thailand fund. 3 months later, I had 12,000 Canadian dollars saved. Enough to live there for 6 months if I was careful. Maybe longer. I didn't tell my parents. They would have freaked out, told me I was throwing my career away, asked what about Emma, what about getting back out there in Toronto, what about stability. I didn't want to hear it. I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok for late September, gave my notice at work, told my landlord I wouldn't be renewing the lease. My friends threw me a going-away party at that same pub on King Street. Everyone was supportive, excited for me, but I could see it in their eyes. They thought I was running away, maybe I was, but I was also running towards something. I didn't know what yet, but it had to be better than the life I was leaving behind. The flight was 14 hours. I didn't sleep. Just sat there watching the little plane icon inch across the map, my stomach tight with anticipation and fear. What was I doing? I had no job lined up, no real plan beyond finding a cheap apartment and figuring it out. I'd never been to Asia before, didn't speak a word of Thai. When we landed at Suvarnabhumi Airport, it was like stepping into a different world. The heat hit me the moment I walked out of the terminal. It was almost midnight and still 30 degrees, humid, the air thick and sticky. I grabbed a taxi and tried to show the driver the address of my hotel in Sukhumvit on my phone. He nodded, didn't speak much English, and we merged into Bangkok traffic. The city at night was overwhelming. Motorbikes weaving between cars, street vendors setting up late-night food stalls, neon signs in Thai script I couldn't read, the smell of grilled meat and exhaust fumes mixing together. Everything was loud and chaotic and colourful. I pressed my face against the taxi window like a kid, trying to take it all in. The hotel was basic but clean. $40 Canadian a night. I dropped my bags, lay on the bed, and listened to the sounds of Bangkok through the open window. Music from somewhere, voices speaking Thai, the constant hum of traffic. I should have been exhausted, but I was wired, adrenaline pumping. I'd actually done it. I'd left everything behind and started over. The first few days were tourist stuff. I visited Wat Pho, saw the giant golden Buddha, walked through Chatuchak Market on Saturday, tried every street food I could point at. Pad Thai, sum tam, grilled chicken on sticks, mango sticky rice. Everything cost next to nothing. A full meal for 60 baht, maybe $3 Canadian. Beer at 7-Eleven for 40 baht. It was like my money suddenly had superpowers. But I was still lonely. I'd take photos and post them on Instagram, and people back home would comment saying how jealous they were, how amazing it looked. But at night, I'd be back in my hotel room, alone, scrolling through my phone, wondering what Emma was doing. If she and Brad were happy? If she ever thought about me? On my 6th night in Bangkok, I decided to walk around Sukhumvit, just explore, see where I ended up. I'd heard about the nightlife, obviously. You can't research Thailand without stumbling across the bar scene, Soy Cowboy, Nana Plaza, Pat Pong. I'd seen the videos, the documentaries, the warnings. Part of me was curious. Part of me thought it was seedy and wrong. But I was lonely and bored, and I told myself I'd just check it out. Just look. Just see what the fuss was about. Soy Cowboy is a short street, maybe 100 meters long, lined with neon-lit go-go bars on both sides. The signs flash red and pink and blue, music pounding from every doorway, barkers outside trying to pull you in. Girls in bikinis dancing on platforms visible through the open fronts of the bars. I walked the length of it once, twice, feeling like a voyeur, like I didn't belong. But then I thought, what the hell? I'm in Thailand. When am I going to be here again? I picked a bar that looked less intimidating than the others, a place called Sugar Dolls, and walked in. The music was deafening. Eurotrash dance remixes, bass vibrating through the floor. There were maybe 8 girls dancing on a raised stage in the centre, all wearing matching pink bikinis with numbers pinned to them. Around the stage were bar stools and small tables where customers sat. Mostly older Western men, some Asian businessmen. I felt out of place immediately, too young, too aware of how awkward I looked. I sat at the bar and ordered a beer. Chang, the bartender recommended. 80 baht, about $4 Canadian. I sipped it slowly, trying not to stare at the dancers but not knowing where else to look. That's when she approached me. Number 43. She slid onto the stool next to mine, all smiles, and said, "Hi handsome, where you from?" Her name was Fawn. Maybe 25 years old, petite, with long black hair and a smile that seemed genuinely warm. She spoke broken English, but better than my non-existent Thai. We talked, or she talked, and I listened and tried to respond. She asked about Canada, if it was cold there, if I had a girlfriend. I told her about Toronto, about the winter, about being single. She laughed at my jokes, touched my arm when she spoke, made me feel like I was the only person in the room. After about 20 minutes, she asked if I wanted to buy her a lady drink. I didn't know what that meant, but I said sure. The bartender poured her something that looked like Coke and charged me 150 baht, about $6 Canadian. Fawn explained that lady drinks let her sit with me longer, that the bar took a cut and she got a small commission. It seemed fair. I bought her 3 more over the next hour. We talked about her life. She was from Isan, the rural northeast, sent money home to her mother every month, worked at the bar to survive. She asked about my life, and I found myself opening up in a way I hadn't since Emma left. Maybe it was the beer. Maybe it was being anonymous in a foreign country. Maybe it was just nice to have someone listen. When I finally checked my watch, it was past midnight. I told her I should go. She seemed disappointed, asked if I'd come back tomorrow. I said maybe. Then I did something that felt right in the moment. I pulled out my wallet and gave her 500 baht, about $20 Canadian, double what I'd seen other guys tipping. Her face lit up. She hugged me, actually hugged me, and said thank you so many times. She pulled out her phone and asked for my line ID so we could stay in touch. I gave it to her, feeling like a hero. Like I'd made someone's night. Like maybe I'd found something real in this strange place. As I walked back to my hotel, the warm Bangkok night wrapping around me, I felt better than I had in months. I'd connected with someone, made a difference in her life, even if it was just $20. The neon lights of Soy Cowboy faded behind me, but the feeling stayed. I didn't know it then, but that 500 baht tip was the first step down a path that would cost me almost everything. That feeling of being needed, being generous, being someone's hero. I chased that feeling for weeks, spending more and more, until I learned the hardest lesson of my life. That the warmth I felt walking home that night wasn't connection. It was an illusion. And I'd just paid $20 for it. I went back the next night. And the night after that. And the night after that. By the end of the first week, I was a regular at Sugar Dolls. I'd arrive around 9 after dinner at some street food stall where I'd barely taste the food, because I was already thinking about seeing Fawn. I'd walk into that bar, and she'd light up when she saw me, wave from the stage or hurry over from wherever she was sitting. Always that same warm smile, like I was special, like she'd been waiting for me. We'd sit at the same spot at the bar. I'd order my Chang beer, buy her the lady drinks, and we'd talk for hours. She told me about her village, how small it was, how everyone knew everyone, how she'd left at 19 to find work in Bangkok. About her mother who was sick, diabetes or something, needed medication. About her younger brother still in school. About how hard it was to send money home and still pay rent in the city. I ate it up. Every story, every detail. It felt real. She felt real. And when I'd leave at midnight or 1 in the morning, I'd tip her 1,000 baht, $40 Canadian. I saw the way her eyes widened the first time I did it, how she'd grab my hand and squeeze it, tell me I was so kind, so different from other customers. And I was different, I told myself. I wasn't like those other guys at the bar, the ones who just wanted to stare at bodies and drink cheap beer. I cared about Fawn as a person. I wanted to help her. The money meant nothing to me compared to what it meant to her. Other girls started noticing the generous Canadian. When Fawn was busy or in the bathroom, her friends would slide over, knock, ploy, mint. They all had sweet names and sad stories. They'd ask where I was from, compliment my smile, ask if I wanted to buy them a drink. Sometimes I would, feeling magnanimous, like some kind of benefactor. I'd tip them too, maybe 300 or 500 baht, not as much as Fawn, but enough to be remembered. The mama-san, the older woman who managed the girls, started greeting me by name. Marcus, welcome back, your table is ready. Like I was a VIP at some exclusive club, instead of a lonely guy spending too much money in a go-go bar. I was going 3-4 nights a week, sometimes 5. My days became about killing time until I could go back to Sugar Dolls. I'd wake up late, maybe go to a coffee shop and pretend to look for remote work online, eat lunch, go back to my hotel for a nap, then start getting ready around 8, shower, cologne, clean shirt. I was dressing up for a bar, for a girl who was working. But it didn't feel like work when we were together. It felt like something more. Fawn started texting me online. Good morning messages with heart emojis and photos of her breakfast. Pictures of the Bangkok skyline from her apartment window. She'd ask what I was doing, tell me she was thinking about me, say she couldn't wait to see me later. During the day, when she wasn't at the bar, we'd have these long conversations. I'd tell her about my life in Toronto, about Emma, about feeling lost. She'd tell me about her dreams of opening a small shop someday, maybe a coffee place or a beauty salon, something to get out of the bar life. One night, after about 2 weeks of being a regular, she asked me about bar finding her, explained that I could pay the bar 3,000 baht, about 120 bucks Canadian, and she could leave with me for the night. She said it carefully, watching my face, like she was worried I'd be offended. I wasn't offended. I was flattered that she'd ask, that she wanted to spend time with me outside the bar, so I did it. Paid the 3,000 to the mama-san, and Fawn changed out of her bikini into jeans and a t-shirt. We walked out of Soy Cowboy together, her hand in mine, and for a moment I felt like we were a real couple, just two people going for a late-night walk in Bangkok. We went to a restaurant she knew, nothing fancy, just plastic chairs and fluorescent lights, but the food was incredible. Tom yum soup, grilled fish, papaya salad. We ate and talked, and she seemed different outside the bar, more relaxed, more herself. She told me she liked that I didn't just want sex, that I wanted to talk, to know her. Said most customers weren't like that. After dinner, we went back to my hotel. I won't lie and say nothing happened, but it wasn't just physical. We watched a movie on my laptop, she fell asleep on my chest, and in the morning she made instant noodles using the electric kettle. It felt domestic. It felt real. When she left, I gave her another 2,000 baht on top of the bar fine. For taxi, for her time, for making me feel less alone. She protested, said it was too much, but she took it. They always took it. That became our pattern. I'd bar fine her once or twice a week. We'd go for dinner, maybe walk around the night market, end up at my hotel. I'd give her money in the morning. 3,000, 5,000 baht. I wasn't keeping track. It was just money, numbers in a bank account. What did it matter if it made her happy, if it helped her family, if it made me feel needed? Between the tips and the bar fines, and the lady drinks and the random transfers, when she texted me asking for help with rent or her motorbike or bills, I was spending about 4,000 Canadian dollars in 6 weeks. A third of my savings. But I told myself it was fine. I was living cheaply otherwise. Street food and a basic hotel. I'd make it last. Except, I wasn't living cheaply. I'd stopped doing tourist things because they cost money I wanted to save for Fawn. I was drinking more, starting earlier in the day. A beer with lunch, a couple in the afternoon at my hotel, then the session at the bar. My tolerance was building and so was my spending. I stopped video calling my parents. They'd ask too many questions. Where are you staying? What are you doing all day? Have you found work? When are you coming home? I'd text them instead, short messages. Everything's great, having an amazing time, don't worry about me. My mom would reply with concerned emojis and reminders to be safe. My dad would just send a thumbs up. Fawn started becoming less available. She'd text saying she couldn't meet that night. She had to work her shift. The bar was busy. She needed to make money. But I could still come see her at the bar, she'd say. So I would. I'd sit there and watch her work the room, sitting with other customers, getting them to buy her drinks, smiling and touching their arms the way she touched mine. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I'd drink faster on those nights, tip bigger to get her attention back. 1,500 baht, 2,000 baht. Other girls would cluster around me, sensing the desperate generosity. I became known at Sugar Dolls as the guy who tipped heavy. The big spender. The ATM. One night, a British guy at the bar, older, maybe 50, leaned over and said, "Mate, can I give you some advice?" His name was Dave. He'd been living in Thailand for 15 years, married to a Thai woman he'd met the normal way, through friends, not in a bar. He came to Soy Cowboy once a month, just to people watch, he said. For entertainment. "You're tipping too much," Dave said, nursing a beer. "You think you're being generous, but you're making it worse for everyone. The girls start expecting it. Then they get disappointed when the next bloke tips 100 baht like a normal person. And you're not buying what you think you're buying." I bristled. "I'm just helping her out. She needs the money." "They all need the money, mate. That's why they're here. But you're not her boyfriend. You're a customer. The moment you start confusing the two, you're done for." "You don't know her," I said, defensive, feeling my face get hot. "We have something real." Dave just smiled, sad and knowing. "Right. How much have you sent her so far?" 5,000? 10? I didn't answer. It was more than 20,000 baht. Probably closer to 100,000 if I actually added it up. 4,000 Canadian. That's what I thought, Dave said. Look, I'm not judging. We've all been there. I'm just trying to save you some pain. But you won't listen. They never do at your stage. What stage is that? The stage where you think you're different, where you think it's real. He finished his beer and stood up. Good luck, mate. You're going to need it. I watched him leave, angry, dismissive. He was just bitter. Jaded. Couldn't understand what Fawn and I had because he'd never experienced it. I ordered another beer and tipped the bartender 300 baht just to prove I could. But Dave's words stuck with me. Late at night, lying in my hotel bed with the air conditioning rattling and Bangkok still humming outside, I'd think about what he'd said. About being a customer. About the money. My bank account was below 7,000 Canadian now. At this rate, I'd be broke in 6 weeks. Fawn started asking for bigger amounts. Her mother's hospital bills, she said. 20,000 baht. 800 Canadian. I sent it without question, even though something in the back of my mind whispered that the story didn't quite add up. Hadn't her mother had a hospital bill 3 weeks ago too? Then it was her brother's school fees. 15,000 baht, 600 Canadian. Then her landlord was threatening to evict her. 10,000 baht, 400 Canadian. I sent it all. Every time. Because what if it was real? What if she really needed it? What if I was the only person who could help her? My savings account dropped below 3,000 Canadian dollars. 3 months in Thailand, and I'd spent 3/4 of my money. I should have been panicking, but I was numb to it, drinking through it, telling myself I'd figure it out. Then came the Friday night that changed everything. I decided to go to Sugar Dolls early, around 7, to surprise Fawn before her shift got busy. I'd had a rough day, feeling lonely, missing home, questioning all my choices. I wanted to see her smile, hear her call me handsome, feel needed. I walked into the bar and scanned the room. The evening shift was just starting. A few customers scattered around, music playing but not at full volume yet. And there was Fawn, sitting at a corner table with a customer I didn't recognize. Middle-aged German guy, thick glasses, polo shirt. I froze near the entrance and watched. She was doing the routine, the exact same routine. Leaning in close, laughing at something he said, touching his forearm. She showed him something on her phone. Probably photos of her village, her family, the same photos she'd shown me. The German guy was nodding, looking sympathetic. He bought her a lady drink. Then another. My stomach dropped. It was like watching a play I'd seen before, except I'd thought I was the only audience member. I'd thought the performance was just for me. I sat at the bar, ordered a whiskey instead of beer, and watched for an hour. The German was into it, completely into it. He was buying her drinks, hanging on every word, and when he finally checked his watch and said he had to go, he pulled out his wallet and tipped her 1,500 baht, about 60 bucks Canadian. Fawn hugged him. The same way she hugged me. She gave him her line ID, told him to come back tomorrow. He walked out grinning like he'd just won the lottery. I sat there, the whiskey burning my throat, my hands shaking. Fawn finally noticed me. She didn't light up. She looked annoyed. She walked over, her smile forced now, and said, "Oh, Marcus, you come early tonight." "Yeah," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "Who was that?" "Who?" "The German guy." She shrugged, like it was nothing. "Just customer." "Same you." "Same you." Those 2 words hit me like a physical blow. Same you. I wasn't special. I wasn't different. I was just another customer. Another ATM. Another lonely foreigner who thought tipping heavy would buy him something real. I stood up. My head was spinning, from the whiskey or the realization, or both. "You okay?" Fawn asked. But she was already looking past me, scanning the room for the next customer. "Yeah," I said. "I'm fine." I walked out of Sugar Dolls without tipping anyone. For the first time in 2 months, I walked down Soy Cowboy with empty hands and a full wallet. The neon lights that had seemed so magical when I first arrived now just looked cheap and desperate. I walked back to my hotel in a daze. Same you. Same you. The phrase repeated in my head like a mantra. All the money I'd spent, All the texts and heart emojis and late-night conversations. All the times I'd felt needed and special and wanted. It was just business. Just performance. Just work. And I'd paid for it all. Every moment of it. I didn't go back to Sugar Dolls for 2 weeks. Didn't go to any bars on Swire Cowboy. Didn't text Fawn. She messaged me a few times that first weekend, asking where I was, if I was okay, saying she missed me. Each message had heart emojis. Each message felt like a knife. I replied once, just need some time to think. She sent back, okay baby. I wait for you. I turned off line notifications after that. For the first 3 days, I barely left my hotel room. I'd lie on the bed with the air conditioning blasting, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 2 months. Every conversation, every tip, every time Fawn had told me I was special, or different, or kind. I'd thought I was rescuing her. Helping her. Being the good guy. But I'd just been another transaction. Another Farang with a wallet and a desperate need to feel important. The worst part was realizing one had done this before. With Emma, back in Toronto. Always trying to buy her affection with gifts. With dinners I couldn't afford. With saying yes to everything she wanted. Never setting boundaries. Never standing up for myself. Just being the nice guy, the accommodating guy. The guy who'd do anything to be loved. And Emma had left anyway. For Brad. For someone who probably didn't try half as hard. Thailand was supposed to be different. A fresh start. But I brought the same broken patterns with me. Wrapped them in neon lights and cheap beer. And called it an adventure. I checked my bank account on day 4. 2,800 Canadian dollars left. Out of 12,000. I'd blown through 9,000 in less than 3 months. That was rent for half a year back in Toronto. That was a used car. That was a foundation for an actual new life. Instead, I'd spent it trying to convince a bar girl that I was special. I forced myself to get out of the hotel on day 5, not to a bar, just to walk. Bangkok in daylight felt different. The chaos was still there, but it seemed more honest somehow. Street vendors selling fried chicken and somtam, office workers rushing to meetings, monks collecting alms in their orange robes, tourists taking selfies in front of temples. Everyone was just trying to live their lives. No performance, no pretense. I wandered into a coffee shop in Thong Lo, a neighborhood I'd never explored. It was full of young Thais on laptops, expats reading books, a mix of languages and accents. I ordered a flat white, expensive by Thai standards at 120 baht, about $5 Canadian, but it was good coffee. Real coffee. I sat by the window and watched the city move. At the next table, 2 guys were speaking English. One was clearly Canadian from his accent, talking about a software project he was working on remotely. The other was American, I think, mentioning something about teaching English part-time. They seemed normal, adjusted. Like they'd figured out how to actually live in Thailand instead of just consuming it. I wanted to talk to them but didn't know how to start. What would I say? Hi, I'm Marcus. I'd been in Bangkok for 3 months and all I have to show for it is an empty bank account and a reality check from a Bargirl. Instead, I went back to my hotel and Googled expat communities Bangkok. Found a running group that met Tuesday and Thursday mornings at Lumpini Park. Found a language exchange meetup on Wednesday nights. Found a Facebook group for digital nomads looking for co-working spaces. I joined the running group that Tuesday. Showed up at 6 in the morning, which meant I had to actually go to bed at a reasonable hour the night before, instead of stumbling home drunk at 2. There were about 15 people there, mixed ages and nationalities. The organizer was a guy named Jamie from Vancouver, been living in Bangkok for 4 years, working remotely for a tech company. We ran 5 kilometers around the park. I was out of shape from months of drinking and late nights. But the morning air felt good, the exercise felt good, feeling my body work instead of just being a vehicle for alcohol felt good. After the run, a group of us grabbed coffee at a cart outside the park. 30 baht for Thai iced coffee, barely $1. I sat with Jamie and 2 others, a woman named Sarah from Australia and a Thai guy named Krit who worked in marketing. They asked the normal questions. Where was I from? How long had I been here? What was I doing? I gave vague answers. Taking a break from work, figuring things out, exploring the city, they didn't push. Everyone in Bangkok seemed to be running from something or towards something or just floating in between. Jamie mentioned a co-working space in Ari he used sometimes, said I should check it out if I was looking for remote work. Sarah talked about teaching English online, how it paid enough to live on if you were disciplined. Crit gave me recommendations for parts of the city I should explore, neighborhoods that weren't on the tourist maps. Normal conversation, normal people. No one was performing. No one was trying to extract money from me or sell me an illusion. It was just humans being friendly. I started going to the running group regularly, started exploring different neighborhoods, went to the language exchange and learned basic Thai phrases from university students who wanted to practice English, sat in coffee shops with my laptop and actually applied for remote work positions instead of just pretending to. One night, about 10 days after I'd walked out of Sugar Dolls, I was eating dinner alone at a small restaurant in Ari. Just noodles and grilled pork, nothing fancy. Jamie from the running group walked in with another expat guy, saw me and came over. "Marcus, want to join us?" I did. We shared dishes, talked about Bangkok, about life back home, about why we'd all ended up here. The other guy, Tom from Manchester, had been in Thailand for 2 years. He'd come for a vacation after a divorce, felt the same pull I did, stayed. But he built an actual life. Teaching at an international school, dating a Thai woman he'd met through friends, not bars, living in a real apartment, not a hotel. At some point, the conversation turned to the nightlife. Tom brought it up, not in a judgmental way, just matter of fact. "Did you hit the go-go bars when you first got here?" he asked me. I hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, for a while." "We all do," Tom said. "It's part of the Thailand experience, I guess." I spent about a month going to Nana Plaza when I first arrived. Thought I'd found true love 3 different times. He laughed at himself. Spent a fortune, learned nothing except what an idiot I was. "What made you stop?" I asked. Realized I was trying to buy something you can't buy. Connection, validation, love. Whatever you want to call it, those women are working. It's their job to make you feel special, and they're good at their job. But it's still a job. The moment I understood that, really understood it, I stopped going. Found healthier ways to meet people. Jamie nodded. The tipping culture there messes with your head too. You start thinking that being generous makes you special, but really, it just makes you a mark. The girls who actually respected me were the ones I tipped normally. Like 150 baht for good service. That's it. Because then, the dynamic was honest. We both knew what it was. I thought about Fawn. About the 1,000 baht tips, the bar fines, the money transfers. About how the more I gave, the less she seemed to respect me. About same you. "How much did you lose?" Tom asked, reading my face. 9,000 Canadian, I said quietly. In 2.5 months. Tom winced. "Bloody hell." "Well, you're not alone. I probably dropped 5,000 or 6,000 pounds before I figured it out. At least you learned the lesson. Some guys never do. They go home broke and bitter, or worse. They stick around and become those sad old men propping up the bars, convinced the next girl will be different." We finished dinner and went our separate ways, but I felt lighter than I had in weeks. I wasn't alone in my stupidity. I wasn't uniquely flawed. I was just another guy who'd learned an expensive lesson about boundaries and self-respect and the difference between transactions and relationships. That Saturday, 2 weeks after walking out of Sugar Dolls, I decided to go back to Soy Cowboy one last time. Not to see Fawn to recapture anything, just to test myself. To see if I could walk down that street and feel nothing. I went to a different bar, a smaller place called Angels, ordered a Chang beer, 80 baht. A girl came over, asked if I wanted company. She was sweet, called herself Nid, couldn't have been older than 23. I let her sit, bought her one lady drink, chatted for maybe 20 minutes about nothing important. She asked where I was from, I told her Canada. She said it must be very cold there. I said yes, very cold. When I finished my beer, I thanked her, tipped her 100 baht, about $4 Canadian, and left. The normal amount. The appropriate amount. She smiled, said thank you, and moved on to the next customer without drama or disappointment. Because 100 baht was fine. It was reasonable. It was honest. I felt more respect in that 20-minute interaction than in all my months with Fawn because we both knew what it was. She was working. I was a customer, no pretense, no performance beyond the basic courtesy of 2 humans engaging in a transaction. She did her job. I paid for her time. We both moved on. I walked past Sugar Dolls on my way out of Soy Cowboy, glanced through the open front. Fawn was there, sitting with a customer, probably telling him her same stories, showing him her same photos, making him feel special. And that was fine. That was her job. I didn't feel angry or betrayed anymore. I just felt sad for the version of myself who'd thought it was real. Back at my hotel, I did the math. 2,800 Canadian dollars left. My hotel was $40 a night, so about $1,200 a month. Street food was maybe $10 to $15 a day. I could stretch my money for another 2 months, maybe 3 if I was careful. But then what? I could look for teaching work, try to make it work long term like Tom and Jamie. Or I could go home, admit defeat, restart my life in Toronto with my tail between my legs and a fraction of my savings left. I thought about it for 3 days, weighed the options, tried to figure out what I actually wanted versus what I was running from. In the end, I booked a flight home for 2 weeks out. Not because I'd failed, but because I'd learned what I needed to learn. Thailand wasn't the problem. The bars weren't the problem. I was the problem. My need to be needed. My inability to set boundaries. My belief that money could buy connection. And those problems would follow me wherever I went, unless I dealt with them. On my last night in Bangkok, I went back to Soy Cowboy one more time. Not into any bars, just walked the length of the street, taking it in. The neon, the music, the girls calling out, the customers shuffling in and out. It was sad and beautiful and human all at once. Everyone there was looking for something. Some were looking for sex, some for companionship, some for adventure, some for escape. The girls were looking for money, for survival, for a future, and in the middle of all that wanting, sometimes wires got crossed and lonely people mistook business for romance. I stopped outside Sugar Dolls, saw Fawn through the window, dancing on stage, going through the motions. She looked tired. Or maybe I just saw her clearly for the first time. I didn't go in. I just stood there for a moment, said a silent goodbye, and walked away. The next morning, I went for one last run with Jamie and the group. Afterwards, over coffee, I told Jamie I was heading home. "Good for you, mate," he said. "You figured it out faster than most." "Learned an expensive lesson," I said. "The expensive ones are the ones that stick." He clapped me on the shoulder. "You going to be okay back home?" "Yeah," I said, and I meant it. I'm going to be okay. Because I'd learned something crucial in Bangkok, something that cost me $9,000 and 3 months of my life. I learned that you can't buy respect. You can't buy love. You can't buy connection. Those things come from how you carry yourself, how you value yourself, how you treat others and demand to be treated in return. I learned that generosity without boundaries isn't generosity. It's desperation wearing a kind face. I learned that the girls who respected me most were the ones I tipped appropriately, because that kept the dynamic honest. We both knew what it was, and there was dignity in that honesty. I learned that the warmth I felt after leaving big tips wasn't connection. It was the temporary high of being needed, of playing hero, of convincing myself I mattered, but it was hollow and expensive, and ultimately empty. I learned that if you're in a foreign country, broke and lonely, throwing money at Bargirls in hopes they'll become your girlfriend, you're not solving your loneliness, you're avoiding it. You're putting a band-aid on a wound that needs stitches. And I learned that sometimes the best thing you can do is stop. Walk away. Go home. Face the real issues instead of drowning them in beer and temporary affection. I flew back to Toronto on a Tuesday. My parents picked me up at the airport, didn't ask too many questions, just hugged me and took me home. I moved into their basement temporarily, started applying for jobs, started therapy to deal with my patterns around relationships and self-worth. It took 6 months to get back on my feet financially and emotionally, but I got there. And when I finally started dating again, I did it differently, with boundaries, with self-respect, without trying to buy anyone's affection. Thailand taught me that, Fawn taught me that, the $9,000 taught me that, and if I could go back and do it over, knowing what I know now, I'd still tip her that first 500 baht, because that moment led to all the others, led to the painful lesson, led to learning who I was and who I wanted to be. But I'd stop there. One night, one tip, one illusion, and then I'd walk away and find connection somewhere real. So that's Marcus's story, and there's a lot to unpack here, a lot of lessons buried in the rubble of his Bangkok experience. First, let's be clear about something. This isn't a story about evil bar girls or predatory nightlife. Fawn was doing her job. She was doing it well. And there's nothing wrong with that. The bars exist because there's demand. The girls work there because they need to survive, to send money home, to build a future. We're not here to judge them. We're here to talk about boundaries, about self-awareness, about the difference between generosity and desperation. Marcus made a classic mistake. He confused a transaction with a relationship. He thought that by being the most generous customer, by tipping the most, by sending money whenever asked, he could transform a business arrangement into something real. But that's not how it works. That's not how any of this works. When you tip excessively in these environments, you're not being generous. You're distorting the dynamic. You're creating expectations that hurt everyone involved. The girls start expecting unsustainable amounts, and then, when a normal customer tips a normal amount, they're disappointed. Other customers see the precedent you set and feel pressure to match it. And you, the big tipper, you lose any chance at authentic interaction, however brief, because the entire relationship becomes about money. The girls who respected Marcus most were the ones he tipped appropriately. 100, maybe 200 baht for good service. Because in those moments, the dynamic was honest. She was working, he was a customer, they both knew it, and there was dignity in that clarity. But when he tipped 1,000 baht, 2,000 baht, when he sent bank transfers and paid for motorbikes and hospital bills, he wasn't helping Fawn. He was helping himself feel needed. He was buying a temporary high, a momentary escape from his loneliness, and Fawn, doing her job, gave him exactly what he paid for. The performance of connection. Here's the hard truth. If you're going to Thailand, if you're going to visit the nightlife, you need to understand what you're participating in. It's entertainment. It's a service. It's a business. The women there are professionals. They're skilled at making you feel special, at reading what you need emotionally, at providing the illusion of intimacy. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you understand it for what it is. But the moment you start believing the illusion is real, the moment you start thinking you're different from every other customer, the moment you start tipping heavy to prove your specialness, you've lost the plot. You're not building a relationship. You're funding a fantasy. And fantasies are expensive. Let's talk about the money. Marcus spent 9,000 Canadian dollars in less than 3 months. That's not supporting someone. That's financial self-destruction dressed up as generosity. And here's the thing. Most of that money didn't even help Fawn in any meaningful way. It fed a cycle. She'd ask, he'd send, she'd spend, she'd ask again. There was no end goal, no plan, no real benefit. Just a perpetual cycle of need and giving and need again. If you genuinely want to help people in Thailand, there are better ways. Donate to legitimate charities. Support education programs. Hire people for services at fair rates. But don't convince yourself that throwing money at a Bargirl is charity. It's not. It's commerce. And pretending otherwise is dishonest to both of you. Now, some of you watching might be thinking, but what if it is real? What if my situation is different? What if she really does care? Maybe she does. People are complicated. Feelings are complicated. It's possible to care about someone and still be working. It's possible for something to be both a transaction and genuine in its own way. But ask yourself this. If you stopped sending money, would she still be there? If you tipped a normal amount, would she still make time for you? If you were broke tomorrow, would she stick around? If the answer is no, or even if you're not sure, then you know what it is. And that's okay. It doesn't make you stupid. It doesn't make her evil. It just means you need to be honest about the dynamic you're in. Marcus learned that lesson the hard way. He saw Fawn with another customer doing the exact same routine, and something in him broke. Because he'd convinced himself he was special, that their connection was unique, that his generosity made him different. But he wasn't different. He was just customer number 43 with a bigger wallet and deeper loneliness. The real growth came in those 2 weeks after he walked away, when he forced himself to sit with the discomfort, to examine his patterns, to see how he'd been trying to buy love his entire adult life. First with Emma back in Toronto, always saying yes, always paying for things, never setting boundaries. Then with Fawn in Bangkok, same pattern, different continent, neon lights instead of winter snow. The turning point was when he met Jamie and Tom, when he saw that it was possible to live in Thailand in a healthy way, to have real friendships and relationships based on mutual respect instead of transactions. When he went to that different bar and tipped a normal amount and felt more dignity in that 20-minute interaction than in months of playing big spender. That's when he learned that respect, real respect, comes from how you carry yourself, not how much you spend, not how generous you are, but from having boundaries, having self-respect, treating others well while also demanding to be treated well in return. So if you're planning a trip to Thailand, if you're thinking about checking out the nightlife, here's my advice. Go if you want. It's part of the culture. It's part of the experience. But go with your eyes open. Tip appropriately. 100 to 200 baht for good service, maybe a bit more if someone truly goes above and beyond. But set a limit. Know what you're comfortable spending and stick to it. Don't send money outside the bar. Don't pay for hospital bills or motorbikes or rent. If someone asks, politely decline. Say you're not in a position to help. Because the moment you start, the moment you cross that line, you've changed the dynamic. You're no longer a customer, you're a mark. And the requests will never stop. Don't bar find someone you've just met thinking you're starting a relationship. You're not. You're extending a business transaction, that's all. If something real develops over time, through multiple visits, through genuine conversation and mutual respect, maybe that's different. But be honest with yourself about what you're hoping for versus what's actually happening. And most importantly, if you find yourself going to the bars 3, 4, 5 nights a week, if you're spending more than you can afford, if you're isolating yourself from other experiences and other people, if you're lying to family back home about what you're doing, stop, walk away, get help. Because at that point, it's not about the bars anymore. It's about you. It's about whatever wound you're trying to heal with money and attention and temporary affection. Thailand is an incredible country. The people are warm, the food is amazing, the culture is rich, the scenery is beautiful. Don't reduce your entire experience to the nightlife. Don't spend all your money in bars thinking you're building connections. Get out there. Explore. Meet people in normal contexts. Join a running group. Take a cooking class. Volunteer somewhere. Build real friendships based on shared interests, not shared transactions. And if you do visit the bars, enjoy them for what they are. Entertainment. A night out. A glimpse into a complicated aspect of Thai culture. But don't mistake business for romance. Don't mistake performance for connection. And don't tip your way into bankruptcy thinking it'll buy you love, because it won't. It never does. All it buys you is an expensive lesson in the difference between generosity and desperation, between respect and transaction, between what you want to believe and what actually is. Marcus learned that lesson. It cost him $9,000 and 3 months of his life. But he learned it. He went home. He got help. He built healthier patterns. You can learn it too. Hopefully cheaper. Hopefully faster. And if you're in Marcus's shoes right now, if you're reading this from a hotel room in Bangkok or Pattaya or Phuket, if you've been spending too much and hoping too hard and lying to yourself about what's real, this is your wake-up call. You deserve better than playing ATM. They deserve better than performing girlfriend. Set boundaries. Tip fairly. Respect yourself. And find your connections somewhere real. Thanks for watching Bargirl Baddies. If this story hit home, if you've been through something similar, share your experience in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. And if you found value in Marcus's hard-learned lesson, hit that like button and subscribe. These stories are here to help, not to judge. Take care of yourselves out there. And remember, the best adventures are the ones where you come home with your dignity and your savings account intact. See you in the next one.